it looks like her acting hasn't improved since her testimony. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. My name's Pluto and I'm a lawyer based in Australia. And at this point, I should probably just say I have a major in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation cases. So for today's video, as you can tell from the title, we're going to be looking at part 2 of Amber Heard's interview with Savannah Guthrie. And I have been reliably informed that Savannah is an attorney, which is why I would assume her questions were so on point and why she was playing hardball and frankly why she was excellent in her interview with Amber. Before we get into it, I do want to clarify something from the last video because I know that people don't watch until the end. Unfortunately, it's just the reality of YouTube, and it's something that I said at the end. I don't want people getting excited about another lawsuit. I mean, first of all, you shouldn't be getting excited about someone taking someone else to court. There's nothing exciting about it. It's awful, it's draining, it's horrendous. But secondly, I want to clarify that the option or the right thing to do in this instance, if you sue someone for defamation successfully and then they repeat their defamatory allegations, is not to sue them all over again. Because why would you waste all that time and money and resources and health, but to seek a remedy known as an injunction. Those of you who stuck around till the end, I'm sorry if this is repetitive, but I'm seeing a lot of people going, oh, that means he can sue her again, right? If she made entirely new allegations and she was really pushing the limit again, yes, of course it's open for him to sue her again for these allegations. For instance, in part 1, she did basically tell Savannah that Johnny lied during his testimony. She didn't specify that he did it during the testimony, but Savannah referred to his testimony that he never hit Amber. And so she said he lied, which is accusing him of perjury, which is defamation per se, as she is accusing him of a crime. So damages are presumed. Will he actually go ahead and do it specifically for this new defamatory statement? I'm hoping that he will seek an injunction, which is the right remedy to seek in this instance. Injunctions exist for many reasons, and this is one of them. To stop someone from doing something or even to force them to do something. But in this instance, it would be the former. Usually there's a test of a real risk of republication that the court will consider before granting an injunction because courts don't like to infringe upon freedom of speech. In this instance, I mean, after this interview, what test? You know what I mean? Amber has clearly surpassed any real risk of republication because she has actually gone ahead and done it. If there's no real risk of republication, let's say you sued a newspaper and then you apply for an injunction as the actor Jeffrey Rush has to stop them from republishing in the future, the court found that there was no real risk of republication. So the newspaper didn't show any inclination or any signs of republishing the defamatory statements that they were sued over. This case is very different. She's gone ahead and done it, and so I think it is a perfect candidate for an injunction. All right, with that out of the way, let's get started on part 2 of Amber's interview.
Do you feel like you could be sued again by him for defamation?
I'm scared that every step that I take will present another opportunity.
Well, how about you stop talking about him and leave him alone? You say all you wanted to do was to move on and for Johnny to leave you alone, and yet here you are. Oh, hi, Leo. And yet here you are giving an interview and republishing or repeating your defamatory allegations. These aren't the actions of someone who wants to be left alone, and most certainly not the actions of a defendant who doesn't want to be sued again in the future.
Which is what I guess a defamation lawsuit is meant to do. It's meant to take your voice.
In terms of defamation lawsuits being wielded as a weapon to silence people, she actually has a point here. In Australia recently, 2 years ago, we had reforms in the area of defamation law to stop just that. Vexatious litigants who wield defamation to silence people who are telling the truth, to silence people who are saying things that the other person doesn't like. And so the reforms made the bar even higher. But the bar, especially for celebrities in Virginia, is already exceptionally high, thanks to actual malice. Because of the inclusion of actual malice, which, if you remember, had an entirely different standard of proof. It went far beyond the civil standard of the preponderance of the evidence, which is on balance. The jury had to basically be convinced in their minds that she acted with actual malice. And that burden was on Johnny to prove. So the system in Virginia had all the checks and balances to ensure that people don't use defamation law, especially public figures, as a weapon to silence people who want to speak the truth. Not her truth or your truth or my truth, but the truth.
But Amber is still speaking, just days after a jury stunned many and found the actress defamed Depp in an op-ed.
Exactly, Savannah. Thank you. Thanks for pointing out the contradiction here.
You decide to write an op-ed. Why did you do that?
Because the op-ed wasn't about my relationship with Johnny.
I'm fairly certain that she already stated on the stand while she was under oath in response to one of Camille's questions during the cross-examination that took place in rebuttal phase, that she wrote the article about Johnny Depp, if not just about Johnny Depp, at least partially about Johnny Depp. Because it is arguable that she wrote it about the Harvey Weinsteins and the Bill Cosbys and the R. Kellys, but also, as per her own testimony, we're no longer relying on defamation by implication here. She admitted on the stand that it was at least partially about Johnny Depp. That's why I wrote the article, because Johnny is this powerful person who gets to do and say whatever he wants and people support him no matter what. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what she testified to. By the way, she hasn't really made any defamatory statements so far, so that's why there's no tally yet. We'll find out.
What the op-ed was about was, me loaning my voice to a bigger cultural conversation that we were having at the time.
No, that was the veil that you and the ACLU used. Because let's not forget that there were drafts, initial drafts, that did include Johnny's name. And the ACLU really pushed to include Johnny's name because they wanted to generate the interest. It's clickbait. Because let's face it, she could have written that op-ed or signed off on it because the ACLU wrote it for her without even referencing her relationship with Johnny Depp. I've said this before on the channel. She could have just not even said then 2 years ago. If I were the lawyer that perused the draft before okaying it, I would have strongly encouraged for the removal of that specific identifier of the time frame. It would have been very easy for her legal team to argue that she could have been referencing anyone in her past. And so you can't pinpoint it to him. But that's not what they did. She wanted a reference there. She wanted the world to know exactly who she was talking about. And the jury thought so as well.
I had lawyers, teams of lawyers, review all the drafts of this.
The mere fact that she had lawyers or a lawyer go over this draft before publication does not protect her from liability. You don't get immunity just because you sought advice. The lawyer, for the most part, may not even know whether you're being truthful or not because they weren't there. And this is exactly how this situation played out. She sought legal advice, the draft was okayed, and yet a jury found her absolutely liable.
When you wrote this op-ed, it was the height of Me Too. Legions of powerful men being canceled. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. It wasn't about him.
You already told us that it was about him, so not true.
This was a hoax, is according to his team.
Not just according to his team, but according to a jury who have rendered a unanimous verdict that it was indeed a hoax, because that's essentially the crux of the issue.
Want to cooperate with them because I didn't want to get him in trouble. If it was a hoax, I could have done that.
But 5 days later, you went to court and it came out.
Ding, 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 ding. Exactly. And why did the press suddenly appear? And why did Morgan Tremaine testify to TMZ being alerted? We'll get to that, by the way. Contradictions. Words do not match up with actions. Also, I believe that she didn't cooperate with the police because she didn't have her plan formulated yet. She still didn't have a long, in-depth discussion with her lawyer, and she was actually advised not to cooperate with them on the phone. And then a couple of days later, Johnny's lawyer gets that letter of demand from Amber's lawyer. So clearly, she didn't cooperate because she didn't even know what she was going to do at that point. I still believe Ayo called the police from New York because he was genuinely afraid that something was going on because he wasn't there. All he could do was listen. She didn't call the police, so they weren't prepared.
5 days later, I made the decision to stand up for myself and protect myself.
To protect yourself against a man who at the time was, if not in New York, in Europe? It's a really odd time to get a restraining order.
An employee of TMZ testified at court and said that TMZ was tipped off. Did you tip off TMZ?
I was going to say, he certainly didn't get tipped off by me or anyone in my...
Did anyone tip off TMZ?
Why would they?
Then who did it? At that time, who had the motive or even the inside knowledge to tip off TMZ? Is she blaming her lawyer? Her lawyer was with her in the courthouse. There is no one else, literally, no other viable contender who could be held liable or who could be behind leaking Amber's presence in the courthouse to TMZ. There's also the fact that they knew exactly where the bruise would be because whoever leaked it to them told them that it would be on the right side of her face. Up until that day, the bruise was invisible, so no one would have known where it was. Her own witnesses, such as Melanie Iglesias, the makeup artist, didn't see the bruise. So even her inner circle. Is she blaming her sister, maybe? I do know there's a history of her sister being accused of leaking things to the press during her wedding to Johnny. So I certainly wouldn't be surprised if she's once again throwing Whitney under the bus. But let's not forget the rest of Morgan Tremaine's testimony. He testified that transferring ownership of copyright takes a very long time if the original owner isn't doing it themselves directly. In this instance, the kitchen cabinet video's copyright was transferred within 15 minutes. In fact, it was published within 15 minutes of receiving it. It had to have been Amber Heard because she recorded it. She was the only rightful owner of the copyright. Let's not forget also the fact that TMZ were just magically there when she arrived for her deposition in August 2016, and then again when she had to reappear for a further deposition. Amber Heard, by her own admission and the admission of her lawyers, isn't a top-tier celebrity. TMZ aren't parked around everywhere waiting to catch a glimpse of her.
And the Depp legal team would put up pictures and saying that why are there no bruises?
Again, it's that thing. If you have bruising, if you have injuries, it's fake. If you don't have any, then you weren't injured.
Johnny's team was not arguing that no matter what you do, it's never enough. The issue here is that your descriptions did not match up with the photographs, with the evidence. When you say that your nose was broken, when you say that your back was bruised, when you say that your scalp was bloody and pussy and you were missing a huge chunk of hair, that did not line up with the photographic evidence. When you said your nose was bashed up and broken on the night of the Met Gala of 2014, that did not match up with the photograph of you taken the very next night. That's what the issue was. That's what Johnny's team pointed out to the jury, the discrepancy. In fact, Camille even conceded that in the December 2015 photos, the light bruising under her eyes aligned much more with Johnny's description of an accidental headbutt while he was trying to stop her from attacking him. So Camille never denied the absence of bruising. It's just that it didn't match up with Amber's description of the events.
You had promised to donate the $7 million of your divorce settlement to charity. They played a tape where you stayed on the air that you have donated it. You haven't done so yet. Do you think that raised questions as to your credibility with the jury?
I don't know, because so much of the trial was meant to cast aspersions on who I am as a human.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive. That's not the answer that Savannah was looking for. It's a simple answer, actually. It could be yes or no. Of course, you can elaborate, you can apologize, you can own up and say that was a bad move on my part. I should have been more forthcoming. I was in a very defensive state. I was under a lot of pressure. You know, she could have said anything, but instead she resorted to the tactic of word salad and playing politician and skirting around the issue and basically trying to go off on a tangent and probably confuse Savannah and make her forget what she originally asked her, because that's what she essentially did while she was on the stand, except Camille was on point and kept pouncing and going, objection, Your Honor, non-responsive, or I'm going to move to strike that, Your Honor. That's what she's doing right now.
To call me a liar in every way you can. And
that was the trial. It was a credibility contest.
Exactly. It was a defamation case where you were relying on, amongst other defenses, the defense of truth. So of course your credibility was a central factor that the other side had to attack. That was the whole point. And they successfully did so. Very easily, might I add, because you helped them.
I shouldn't have to have donated it in an effort to be believed.
That's not what people expected, though. They didn't expect you to donate it to prove that you were a victim. They expected you to own up to lying during an interview back in 2018, a Dutch interview. And need I add, lying under oath during the UK proceedings, where the trial judge actually said that he has no reason to disbelieve that she actually made the donation, and he used her testimony as a basis for rejecting the notion that she was a gold digger. And that played some part in his judgment of her credibility. So she committed perjury by stating that she donated the amounts, and she lied on air. So what was pointed out in court is the fact that she is a liar, not the fact that she couldn't possibly be a victim simply because she didn't donate the entire amount. She is muddying the waters on purpose. She's trying to confuse you, the viewer, and distract you from the crux of the issue. Ironically, that's what she accused Johnny's team of doing in part 1 of the interview.
You shouldn't have, but once you said you did.
Right, which is where it was intended to go.
So say that during your testimony. Say that's what I intended. Don't say pledge and donation are synonymous to me, because they're not. When you say I donated, that means you did it. You donated the actual $7 million. And that's what the host during the interview, the Dutch interview, believed. He said, wow, good for you. She could have corrected him then and there and said, no, I pledged to, and I hope to someday fulfill that pledge. But that's not what happened.
I love him. I loved him with all my heart.
Well, you have a really strange way of showing it. And I'm not just talking right now. I'm talking during the relationship based on all the evidence that we have seen. I'm not just talking the recordings, which were horrendous in and of themselves, but even just photographing him. Very early on, photographing him sleeping, recording the kitchen cabinet video. All of these things showed you that she's always had some strange ulterior motive. You don't behave that way if you truly loved someone with all your heart. My opinion is that she's obsessed with him. And as Zach, my partner, likes to remind me, based on his personal experiences, obsession has nothing to do with love and everything to do with ownership, with power, with control, with possession. All of her behavior during the relationship says otherwise, including following him around. She never respected his wishes. If you love someone, you respect their wishes to be left alone. If you love someone, you respect their wishes to end the relationship if they no longer want to be with you. I think she can't get over the fact that he wanted out and that he dared stand up for himself. Ultimately, that's what this was all about, that he took control. No defamatory counts really in this video. I think part 1 was quite impressive with the number of allegations that she repeated, and even the new one that she made about Johnny essentially committing perjury. Savannah did say that there is one more part that will be released. I'm assuming that it's going to be released as an entire interview as well at some point. But yeah, we'll see what's in store for us in the next one. Thanks, take care, and I'll see you then.